The one thing that I think we could all be doing right now that would really, really help with the way things are is meditation. Don't switch off this video. It's not what you think. People think of meditation and they think of like hippies and yoga people blissing out and visualizing unicorns pooping rainbows. And certainly some people are doing it like that. That's not actually meditation though. That's a visualization. What I'm talking about here is pure meditation from the Zen tradition, which would be, and many traditions use this, it would be total stillness, silence, and spaciousness. Nothing else. Why? Because it is the opposite of content. It's the opposite of being in a content consuming state. So imagine the human being as, let's put a little circle, let's keep things super simple. A little circle, that's a human being. They have things going on outside of them, and then they have things going on inside of them. Emotions, thoughts, ideas, intents, fears, dreams, whatever you like. When there is an awful lot of content coming in from outside into the circle then needs to become defensive. Like, what will I take on? What do I not take on? I want some of that. I don't want that. I feel harassed and put upon by this. And there's just a huge bombardment of content out there. What do I mean by content? Do I mean it in the sense that we use it euphemistically on the daily, which is, this is content. YouTube produces content. I'm a content provider. Yes, I do mean it like that, but I also mean it in the way that they would talk about it in the Zen tradition and the way that people who do pure stillness meditation talk about content. The way Eckhart Tolle would talk about content. I don't think he says he's from the Zen tradition, but it's very, very similar. So you want a type of meditation that is totally plain, that is only about sitting in stillness and silence and in spaciousness. I'll explain that in a moment, but here's why. The bombardment of content upon the individual creates strain. These walls, if this is a single cell, the cell walls become strained. And in an environment that is extremely rich in content, very dense in content, creates stress. It stresses the cell. That poor single-celled entity that we're calling a human here, we're reducing humans to amoebas. You people like simplicity, so there you go. It's an enormous amount of stress and strain. And I think we get content fatigue. Now, content, two things, in the social media sense, in the internet sense of just stuff you can consume, but content in the meditation and Zen tradition as that which the mind holds. If you like, from the psychoanalytic tradition, objects, internalized objects. That which the mind holds within it. So if the mind is a circle or a vessel or a cup, which, is the metaphor that many of us end up using. We say, empty the mind or still the mind, as though the mind was a cup of water and we need to still the surface. Empty the mind is like emptying a cup. Do we use these metaphors because the skull is a yin space and the brain itself is content inside of that yin space? You can shake the cup around and there's movement and there's water in here. I know, I've had my skull fractured and brain fluid shot out of my nose when I was doing a martial arts demonstration years ago. And that actually damaged the brain. It damaged the content. The external pressure of being struck in the head multiple times created multiple hairline fractures, and it eventually split the sac around my brain, and cerebrospinal fluid came out of my nose. I thought it was snot. I was like, I've been hitting the sinuses and it's snot. It wasn't. It was brain fluid. Bad injury, very dangerous. I'm fine now. So we've got to be careful about being in a content-dense, content-soaked consumer state. You're the consumer. You're taking the content into you. It goes into the yin. It goes into the space. It goes into the skull. It goes into the cup. Whose content is this? Whose content is it? Who created it? You've got other people's dreams, other people's nightmares, other people's narratives, other people's stories, other people's perversions, other people's delights, desires, tortures, whatever you want. It's all out there. But it's not yours. And it's not real. So if you're in a content dense, content fatigued, content stressed state, you are stressed and fatigued by delusion. You're stressed and fatigued by other people's fantasies and other people's illusions. Does that sound healthy? Does that sound like a good place to be? So why meditation? So pure meditation takes this stressed, strained, embattled, besieged entity, the human consciousness, that space of human awareness, and says, okay, stop. That's why you want pure Zen style, content free. You're not visualizing. Visualizations can be fantastic. I love visualizations. I love setting intent, and there's hypnosis, visualizations, fantastic, all useful. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a solution for everybody that's completely achievable. 20 minutes a day, sitting still with the spine erect and saying and doing nothing. Do we have to completely empty the mind? No. But I'll give you what is essential and what will work and what will help you and what will make you feel more sane and healthier very, very rapidly. Because we are tough as entities. We are tough and we're strong and we recover quickly. But you can't recover when you're addicted, conditioned to imbibing all this external fantasy-based content. You can't recover when you're still under the embattlement of all that. You need 20 minutes. Really, everybody needs an hour, but I'm going to say 20 minutes because an hour just sounds like, I'm not doing an hour's meditation. Are you out of your mind? I'm busy. I got Netflix to watch. I got to watch 6 hours of Netflix and TV a day. I've got to consume 5 to 6 hours of social media content every day. It's busy days, man, being a consumer. Busy, busy days. We're all terribly busy and terribly tired as well. And overstimulated. People now, everybody's saying they got ADHD. Well, you haven't got ADHD, you're overstimulated. I have ADHD temporarily if I allow myself to become overstimulated. And I'm not better than you. I allow myself to get overstimulated. I'm a dumb monkey. I'm a dumb primate as well. I get sucked into the dopamine cycles and to the addiction and conditioning cycles of punishment and reward and whatever else from social media usage and the consumption of mainstream media as well. I have done multiple times in my life, and I still do now if I'm not careful. What do we need? We need stillness, because all this consumption is the opposite of stillness. It's all spectacle. Spectacle must. Content is spectacle. Content is fantasy, and it must be loud and colorful and provocative of your emotions. And if you look at a population of humans over a timeline, they will get number and number to the same stimulus. So you have to ratchet up the stimulus out. I was going to say year by year, month by month, but it's hour by hour. It must get louder, more colorful, more obscene, more shocking, more rage-inducing, more frustration-inducing, more indignation-inducing, year by year, month by month, hour by hour. The people who are producing the content are making it more and more brutalizing for the consumer. Sometimes just because they have to. It's not done with really serious, evil, nefarious intent. It's just, if you want likes and views and followers, you want to win the game, you want to play the game and do well in the game and compete, be loud, be crazy, be colorful, be obnoxious, be rude, be provocative, divide, polarize. Nobody's going to tune into, hey guys, let's sit still and meditate and return to our bodies and let's breathe for a second. And let's not polarize, and let's not get addicted to negative emotion spirals and negative cycles, and let's talk reasonably, like adults. And let's do what we can do sensibly for everyone. Nobody's tuning into that. Nobody's tuning into that. That's not going to make it. You've got to scream, you've got to shout, you've got to demonize, you've got to denounce, you've got to act like the modern version of the Spanish Inquisition. You have to torture people and burn them in the town square, digitally speaking, interrogate them, force a confession from them, and then burn them in the town square so everybody else can see. That's what you need to do if you want to win this psychopathic narcissistic game. But we can choose to opt out. Just 20 minutes a day would be a revolution in human consciousness. Because you know what would happen? You know, this is what would actually happen. Inside those 20 minutes, people would fall in love with the process and they wouldn't do 20 minutes. If you've got the time, it's so wonderful and so fulfilling to be in that space. You'll stay. Your knees might hurt and your back hurts from the position. So you have a little stretch and a move around and you get yourself comfortable again. But it's so good. It feels so good. It feels so re-energizing and rehumanizing to come back to a zero state where you're not consuming anything. And it grants you the ability and the permission to be by yourself, as yourself, not as a performing avatar, not as a flying monkey or a performing monkey in somebody else's circus. Because remember, the content that's being produced isn't just produced wildly. It's not produced solely by people thirsting for attention who didn't get hugged enough by mummy and daddy when they were kids. It's sometimes produced by people who really have nasty agendas, really do want to do some damage in the world. And sometimes these people are the best at creating the most compelling, exciting, stimulating, ADHD-inducing, titillating, shocking, obnoxious, divisive, and polarizing content. That's their gift. May God forgive them. So what are we looking for? You want a zero state, a content-free state. Stillness, so you sit still, you stop moving your body, stop jerking around. You might have to put your phone on the other side of the room and not touch it, probably put it on silent. You want to come back to your own body, so close your eyes if you're going to do it, so that you return away from the visual senses to the auditory, so you tune into what you can hear, and the kinesthetic senses. You tune into what you can feel. There's a lot of problems when we're very, very visually focused. I won't get into that now. Shutting off the visual, returning to auditory and kinesthetic helps. Putting your conscious awareness back inside of your own body, because that's where it should be. Shouldn't be out there. What's happening to you when you're constantly disassociated from your body? And you're not even disassociated on like a spiritual shamanic journey for 8 to 12 hours a day. You're on somebody else's game. You're on somebody else's format. You're on somebody else's video, somebody else's narrative, somebody else's story. It's not even... Being disassociated for 12 hours a day, I would say, is not great. Being disassociated in a trance and indoctrinated into other people's ways of thinking, into other people's ideological perversions, which they are, like there's just a ton of corrupt ideology around now, really does a lot of damage to you. So you're not disassociated, you are associated. You sit, you breathe, you stay inside your own body, your own space, your own lane. Your own lane. And you stay there and it feels good. Not at first, it will take time. Everything that is worth having is difficult in the beginning, but it will feel good eventually. And you breathe, you focus on your breathing, you still the breathing, and you listen. Not to anything in particular, you just listen. That's your stillness. Your spaciousness is you allow your thoughts to soften. You don't clear the mind. Forget that. That's maybe in 5 or 6 years' time. But for now, you just have softness and space around the thoughts. You let thoughts come, you let thoughts go. You associate, so you're not disassociated, you're now associated in your own body, in this reality, not in a fantasy or a daydream or somebody else's fantasy or daydream. And you're in your own body and you're observing your thoughts. You're not being your thoughts. You're not being other people's content and you're not being your own content. You're observing it peacefully, calmly, not fighting with it. You let it come, you let it go. And then silence. Silence. You let silence be the doctrine. You let silence be the ideology. You let silence be the teacher. You drop down into stillness, drop down into silence. and then you just be. You just be. I can't sell people on doing this because it's not a virtual reality, all singing, all dancing, screaming psychopath sound and light show. It's very plain, it's very normal, and it's very against the addictive, conditioned mode of thinking that most people are in. 20 minutes a day very easily would lead to 30 to 40 minutes a day, and it would lead us in the most direct fashion possible back to sanity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and your attention. I hope that you go now and pay that time and attention in equal amounts back to yourself. I have a channel called Richard Granham Philosophy, and on that channel I think there's 2 guided meditations. They are guided meditations, so there is content, but it's guiding you down into spaciousness, stillness, and silence, the content-free zone. Thank you.